move on to the demo at this point. But before we kind of jump into that, we're just going to talk about the flow quickly. What we're going to be doing is we're going to have Alicia as the buyer create an RFQ, and it's going to be a sealed bid. And she's also going to allow alternates or allow vendors to provide or offer their own substitute or alternate items or services on these bids. We're also going to require vendors to qualify themselves on the RFQ when they bid. We're going to invite specific vendors to bid, and we are also going to broadcast or publish the RFQ to the vendor portal. Now, once that's done, Stan is going to, as the vendor, bid on the RFQ. He, in this case, has not been specifically invited to bid, so he's going to request to bid from the open list page. He's going to qualify himself to bid on this particular RFQ. He's going to suggest some alternates and then submit his bid. Lastly, we're going to move back over to Alicia as the buyer. Once all the bids come in, she's going to unseal those bids, score them, compare and rank those bids before she awards them. Now for this demo, my colleague is going to act as Alicia, the buyer, and myself, I will be Stan, the vendor.
What I will do now is I'll start as Alicia. She want to create a request for quotation. I'm on the all request for quotations list page, and I'll create a new quotation, a new case, and I have an opportunity to put in a document title, which will show on the portal. And I will select one of the new solicitation types, RFQ goods, and that will also drive the scoring criteria which will be added to the case, which I will score on later when I get the replies back. I will have a requesting department I can enter here, which also will be available through the portal, so the vendor can see which department I actually requesting these services. So another thing to notice here is the expiration date and time, which is very much related to the seal bid. So this is actually the time that the bid. Oh, there is some echoes on. So that would be expiration date time. So we have added the time element here. So we have a specific point in time when the vendor cannot reply after that date, and that's when the bids can be unsealed. So this will start my creation of the RFQ. So the bid type here, it's default to open, but we could actually also let the solicitation type drive the bid type. Right now it's driven to be open, but I can go in individually per RFQ and select that it's sealed. So, and I would also allow alternates on the response lines. So sealed will mean that when I get the replies from the vendors, then I, as a purchase agent, cannot see their quantities and prices before the whole case are unsealed. So I will enter 3 lines, 2 that is non-catalog items. They will be in the procurement category office machines. That will be used to actually drive my vendor list later on. That's why I'm entering it now. So it's and I have 15 of this one. So now my delivery date was defaulted for today. I'll say it's probably not realistic that I get it today. I'll put it to the 29th of January, and I will be able to update the lines based on the header like that. The other category item and the third one will be a normal item. So now I created the list of items that I want to request bids for, and you see the procurement categories is office machines. We have added an auto add vendor functionality on the vendors list, which will automatically pull out the vendors that are approved to sell within these procurement categories. So this is just an option to populate the list fast. I will have 3 vendors that qualifies for that. We have the normal vendor search opportunity where you have more opportunities to go in and query certain areas. So you can make it more granular which vendors that you want to have on the list. But anyway, I have 3 vendors now, and I would also want to add a questionnaire which I want them to fill out to see if they qualify to be vendors. We have integrated to the standard questionnaire framework, so you have to create questionnaires in that context and pick it from that list. So now we have a questionnaire added to the case. So just to have a look on the scoring criteria which were tied to the solicitation type or derived from the solicitation type, I have 5 criteria where you can go in and score afterwards. I can modify these on a case basis, so just go in and edit directly here. Right, so now I have 2 options of processing the request for quotation here. One is to publish to the vendor portal. This is a specific public sector configuration key-enabled functionality, and that will basically not okay, what's happening here? So that will populate the request for quotation on the portal on the open RFQ page, and not send to specific vendors. The other send button will actually send to the vendors pointed out in the list. So this is the standard functionality, which is not public sector governed. And the reason is that it's more common that the public sector industries are going out and sourcing multiple vendors that they don't have approved in their company yet. So I'll send this, and now I would hand over the task to my vendor, Brian, which will go in and reply on the RFQ.
Sounds good, Mine.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just one little thing, because Brian, we have set you up in the system to have actually 2 security roles now. One security role will be the vendor, external vendor, and another security role will be a public sector vendor. And the public sector vendor security role give you actually access to these open and closed RFQ list pages, the public documents.
So now that I've created an RFQ and she has invited specific vendors to bid, as well as published it to the vendor portal for everyone to see, now we're Stan. I'm going to be Stan as the vendor. We're in the vendor portal. These two open and closed list pages appear for Stan. As you can see here on the request for quotations list page, I am Fabricam supplier. I'm the vendor Fabricam supplier, and as you can see, there is no open RFQ. There is no RFQ that I've been invited to related to those office supplies. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to look at the open request for quotations list page, and this is the publicly available page so that people can actually see what RFQs are open. And I'm going to see that Mai has actually created a new RFQ. And as the vendor, I can look at this particular RFQ and say, you know what, even though I haven't been specifically invited to go and bid on this RFQ, my company actually does, provide projectors, whiteboards, and HDMI cables. So I actually think that I can bid on this. So from the open request for quotations page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bid on this particular RFQ. Now, if you take a look at this new bid form, this basically copies over everything from the RFQ onto the bid so that the vendor doesn't need to enter it themselves. And instead of the send button, we've renamed this to submit so that the vendor knows that they're actually submitting their bid. The other thing I want to call attention to here is the add alternate button and the remove alternate buttons that we've added to Stan's bid. Now these will appear if the buyer allows the RFQ or allows vendors to provide their own alternates on their bids with relation to an RFQ. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the quantities that have been requested, and for this projector, I'm going to say, you know what, I think that I can actually offer a different type of projector. Let's say it's a projector from IKEA, and I'm going to go and click Add Alternate. What that does is it's going to go and create an identical line for this particular projector, and what you can do here is you can actually change the product name. And you'll also see here under this alternate column that you'll see that this line is an alternate, because it's yes, but you know that this line is also related to line number 1. So you know that this is an alternate for line 1. The other thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to enter in a unit price for this projector, and I'm going to add a comment. And for the other lines, I'm actually going to go and enter in unit prices as well. Same thing with the cables. HDMI cables are, depending on where you go, extremely cheap or extremely expensive. Okay. Now, Stan may think that he's actually done with this particular bid and he's going to try to submit. But he's going to get an error saying, you need to first complete the RFQ questionnaire before sending the bid. So in this case, he cannot submit his bid until he qualifies himself that he is qualified to actually respond to this RFQ. So in this case, he's going to open up this questionnaire, fast tap, and he's going to complete it. You can have a variety of questions. This is just the questionnaire framework that we're surfacing that currently exists in AX. In this case, the countries where the products originate, Sweden. Are you certified to provide the maintenance services related to this product? So I'm going to answer yes. And have I provided these products before? And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to complete this questionnaire. And now we are going to go and submit this particular bid. So now the Stan has submitted his bid for this particular RFQ. And now he's going to be taken back to his request for quotations list page. And you'll see here that there is no action required for the particular RFQ or this particular bid. He's already submitted it. You can see that this is also a bid type of sealed, and you can also see that now we have an expiration date and time that is surfaced on this request for quotations list page. So now that Stan has submitted his bid, it's time for Alicia to wait for all of the other bids to come in and then unseal and evaluate.
Okay, so what I'm doing now is that I can see that I have received, this is the RFQ that I created before and sent out. So I have received at least one answer here. So I will go into the RFQ. I can see that Fabricant supplier have answered the RFQ via the vendor portal. And this is a new record that have come in. I mean, we only have had 3 vendors before, but since at Fabricant went in and applied, asked to reply on the bid, we have it on the list here as a reply. I cannot, the unseal button is disabled because it still haven't expired yet, so that's why I cannot unseal it, but I have another RFQ which I will go in and show you how it looks when we are unsealing it. But before I'm doing that, I will show you how the reply looks like. So opening the reply from the vendor, I can see that the bid sealed, line amounts and quantities are hidden. And if I go down to the purchase quotation lines, everything about quantities and unit prices is removed. And I can't go in and look at details or anything. So I will close this down because I don't want to wait a month for unsealing it. So I have this one. You can see the expire date time has passed, so I'm actually able to unseal that one. I'll unseal the bid. So when I unseal it, then the bid lines and quantities will become visible and you will not be able to seal the bid again. Are you sure you want to unseal the bid? So you can't actually close the envelope again once you have opened it. And I say yes. And when I open this RFQ, I can go into the reply, which now of course will be a different one than Brian made. This is another one, but I can see that I have unit prices. I have alternative lines as Brian also entered. So it's pretty much similar to his response. I can go in and score the bid. Let me just put in some scoring values here. For every criteria, I will have a description below where I can see what the scores mean. So, and you can see the total score I calculated on top here. So this was one reply. Now I only have this reply in this case.
Mike, before you navigate from that, did you also want to show the answers to the questionnaires?
Yeah, I'll come. Yeah, I can do that. Good point. So going down to the questionnaires, I can see view the answers to figure out whether he's qualifying to actually bid. And if it wasn't qualified, I could just reject the reply immediately. And then I could also, if I reject the reply immediately, it wouldn't show up in the compare fold later on. But I would like to have more than one reply. So I'll imagine that the rain projectors actually have sent their bid in an envelope, which is open at the same time as the bids are unsealed. Then I would probably go in and enter their response into AEX. So I will start by copying the data, which will transfer the quantities, and then enter the unit prices that they and I will have a scoring. would be it. So now I have 2 replies, and from this reply, I can actually also compare the data or compare the different replies. So I will have 2 replies here. I can see my unanswered, for example, which I can filter out here. In the old AX, everything would come in, previous version of AX, every reply will come in even if it was unanswered as a 0. But here I will actually filter out the unanswered replies. I can get the system help me to find the lowest net amount by line. So that's more see which lines are the lowest prices, or I will say which is lowest total price, and it will filter out those informations for me. So what I'm comparing is that I have per vendor, I have header and lines, and the header lines, they have the total amount. And the total amount is in the company currency, which makes it much easier to compare, because you could get replies in different currencies. So we are transforming it to one comparable currency here. I also have, to the more right, I have the total amount in transaction currency and the corresponding currency if it was in euro, for example, and in Danish kroner. So you could see the actual value that was given in. But this is easier to compare when you have one currency you're comparing. I have my total score, which I've been filling in. I have an information of which lines that's alternates. And then I have my line numbers. So I know that if I want to only look at line 1 or only look at line 2, I can filter out that with the normal grid filtering functions. I will have the comments from the vendor coming up here, which I can view. I have deviation from the requested delivery date. If a vendor have put in, you can put in a lead time, how much they will expect that it takes from you ordering the stuff to you get it. So there's a lot of things that you're going in and comparing here, and the change from X R2 is that we have put everything in one grid, which makes it easier to compare. But let's say you have got like 50 responses in for 10 lines or something like, which makes this a very big chunk of rows to handle. You can, of course, use the normal filtering and sorting functions here, but we also make it very easy to export it to Excel, so you can continue the comparison and work with the stuff in Excel. This also would be easier to share with others if you are a committee that are deciding which bids are winning. So you can distribute Excel sheets so everybody can see what the vendor has offered. In this form, you can put in a ranking. This will be the rank, saying which one that is most desirable. So if the score means the most, or the cost means the most, it depends. Total amount does not include alternate lines. So this is one thing to be aware of. So if the alternate line is given, and in this case the amount for the real line is 0, it can you have to be aware that it's not included in the total amount. So actually this one is probably a better offer. So I will accept this offer. Then I'm told that one or more questions are not complete. So I have to, I didn't do my homework properly enough. I need to, actually the bit that came in the envelope, I didn't go in and fill out that questionnaire. So there might be some things that we had to consider for this vendor. So the countries, in this case it would be Uganda. Are you certified to maintain? And if he says no, and have you provided these products before? No. So that must disqualify him to actually get the offer. So I would go back and accept the other offer.